I'm pretty sure I saw the trailer for this movie before I saw Joker back in October of 2019. It's been a long time coming. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be giving you my review of The Kingsman, the latest film from the Kingsman franchise. In the early years of the 20th century, the Kingsman Agency is formed to stand against a cabal plotting a war to wipe out millions. So before I give you guys my thoughts on this movie, make sure to hit that like button, comment your thoughts or expectations for this movie down below if you have not seen it yet, and make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future reviews, Marvel coverage, and all that good stuff. So I recently binged through the first two Kingsman movies back to back before I watched this movie. Some of my favorite action spy movies from the past decade. So going into this, seeing it being a prequel, I kind of had moderate expectations, not really sure how I felt about them not bringing back certain characters and just continuing the Kingsman story. But I'm happy to say, this movie was a lot of fun. Ralph Fiennes is the headliner of this movie, and of course we all know him as Voldemort. He's in Schindler's List. He's never really been like a franchise carrier in my opinion, so I thought it was an interesting casting choice to have him be the lead in a Kingsman movie, but I think that he actually gives a pretty solid performance here, and the performances all around are really solid. Like, it fits the vibe of the Kingsman franchise while also switching it up at the same time. For example, the action in this movie is very similar in style to the action sequences in the first two, where there's those signature quick zooms and the really absurd fight sequences. Obviously in this film, Rasputin is a present character, so he has some antics that go down throughout the movie that are pretty comedic, but also some really interesting fight scenes that are choreographed well, but quite entertaining as well. And the intricate spy plotline from the first two movies is also present here. It's just in a little bit of a different format, as this is again a prequel, so we're seeing the formation of the Kingsman Agency, which I thought was quite interesting. I always love to see information on how things are formed, and if a prequel's done right, I'm a fan of it. Certain prequels have been misses. I think this one is a hit for the most part, and it's vastly different from the first two Kingsman movies while also maintaining a lot of similarities. Like I said, it's got that unique action style that's present. While this movie does have funny moments, it's way less comedic than the first two Kingsman, and it feels much more like a straight up drama. Like, there's a portion of this movie that really just felt like a war drama and a story about father and son, and it literally felt like I was watching 1917 in the movie theater. This movie does take place around the World War I time period, and so anytime we get to see action sequences play out there, it's kind of breathtaking, and I'm really impressed with some of the shots in this movie. Like, it was a gorgeous looking movie. The action was really riveting, especially the World War I portion of this movie. That is the standout to me, and I think most people will probably agree. This movie's definitely emotionally heavy, and it's more dramatic, like I said. And this is a little bit of a downfall in my opinion, because I think the first two movies of the Kingsman franchise establish a tone that has dramatic elements, but it's overall comedic and somewhat lighthearted, and I feel like this definitely removes more of that lighthearted vibe. I feel like the charisma of Taron Egerton's Eggsy, the main character in the first two movies, as well as Colin Firth's character, and especially Merlin in the first two movies, would have maybe made this movie a little better. I know it's a prequel, but if characters had more charisma in this film, I feel like it might have been a little more entertaining and enjoyable. Like, the performances are solid and the story is compelling, but for me personally, I just really never was able to get invested in Ralph Fiennes' character as much as I was in Taron Egerton's character, and that's kind of a bummer, because with the Kingsman movies, I always just thought the characters were so cool and I really loved exploring more about them. In this movie, they do a good job of fleshing them out, but I just didn't care as much about them. Like, the characters can be a little too bland and vanilla in this movie, which I found a little bit unfortunate. The central plot of this movie can get pretty overloaded and bizarre at times, but this franchise is really no stranger to that, so that's not a surprise at all. But the movie is pretty massive in scale. It's globe spanning at times, and in a sense, this can kind of drag the pacing down for me, especially like in the first hour. It's a movie that really takes its time to get going. There's a really great opening sequence, but then it really just takes its time to get to the actual central plot, and then it really picks up from there. But there's a lot of slower, dragging portions of this movie, unlike the other two Kingsman films, which start at lightning speed and never slow down. And this movie continues to take influence from the first two Kingsman movies, as it does have a pretty cheesy villain, and I feel like they went real campy overboard with it, but again, that's kind of expected, as it's sort of parodying the absurd nature of some of these spy films we get over the years. And even though the action sequences are lesser in this, as we don't have as many in quantity, I think they're still pretty epic, and they will keep audiences enthralled. One in particular on like the side of a mountain / cliff is really well done. And of course, there's plenty of tie-ins to the first two Kingsman movies that fans of the franchise are going to enjoy. It's almost like an Easter egg hunt at times with certain lines that are mentioned, so that's always a fun time. So while I was not as captivated with the story of the Kingsman as I was with the first two Kingsman movies, I still had a really fun time at the movies. It's overloaded bloated at times. It's definitely on the longer side with some pacing issues, but it's still entertaining as hell. I really hope we get a continuation of the first two Kingsman movies as opposed to another prequel movie, but who knows what we'll get. Make sure to stick around. There is a post-credit scene in this movie. So with all that being said, I'm going to give the Kingsman 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you're a fan of the Kingsman franchise, you're definitely going to have a fun time with this one, and if you just like action movies in general, this is probably going to be your cup of tea. But that's going to do it for my review of the Kingsman. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, make sure to hit that like button, comment your thoughts or expectations for this movie down below. What's your favorite of the Kingsman movies? I want to know that as well. Thank you guys again for watching. Tons of content coming down the line for the rest of the month and heading into 2022, so make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of it, as well as that notification bell. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.